Back to Ocala, Florida now, where a man is on trial for the 2023 murder of his husband.
Defendant Herbert Swilley faces first-degree murder charges in the death of his husband, Tim Smith. Now, deputies allege that Swilley drugged Smith, strangled him, and fractured his neck before driving his body to the couple's apartment and staging a crime scene.
Now, that crime scene, they collected a lot of evidence. Let's go back into the courtroom now. We've got a new witness on the stand who can give the jurors a lot more information. Forensic DNA analyst Lisa Johnson.
My name is Lisa Johnson, Lisa Johnsson.
Where do you work now?
Hold on 1 second. Ms. Johnson, please. Can I take your glasses off the top of your head?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Where do you work?
I currently work at the Wake County Bureau of Forensic Services
Where is that?
in Raleigh, North Carolina.
What do you do for them now?
I am a forensic DNA analyst.
Where did you work prior to that?
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Jacksonville.
And what did you do for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement? We call it FBLE.
I was a senior crime laboratory analyst in the biology section.
What did you do on a day-to-day basis as a senior analyst?
My main responsibilities were examining items of evidence for the presence of body fluids or other sources of DNA, develop DNA profiles from those items of evidence, and then compare the evidence samples to known samples collected from individuals associated with the case.
How long did you do that type of work for FDLE?
Just over 12 years.
Can you describe to the jury your educational background and your training that allows you to do that type of work?
I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Interdisciplinary Natural Sciences from the University of South Florida and a Master's of Science degree in Forensic Science from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. The first year or so that I was with FDLE, I went through their analyst training program, which was consisted of literature readings, textbook readings, becoming familiar with the protocols and procedures in place within the laboratory, working on practice samples. I also did written and oral examinations and supervised casework where I examined evidence under the supervision of a qualified analyst. And then I finalized it with a mock court type situation.
And how long have you been a DNA analyst in total?
Almost 20 years.
Okay. Do DNA analysts at Florida Department of Law Enforcement undergo proficiency training and testing and things like that?
Yes.
And did you do that when you were there?
Yes.
Were you successful in doing all your proficiency testing?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever testified in court regarding the field of forensic serology or DNA testing or statistical analysis and DNA testing, those types of areas?
Yes, I have.
Can you estimate about how many times?
Over 160.
Okay. Can you describe for the jury provide the jury a very general explanation of what DNA is and how you use it?
Yes. DNA is a substance in our body that makes us unique individuals. Greater than 99% of everybody's DNA is the same. Only identical twins have exactly the same DNA. We inherit our DNA from our parents, so we get half from our mother, half from our father. And it's the same throughout our body, so blood, skin, all the same DNA, and it doesn't change over the course of our lifetime. So that allows, in my field, a sample that's left behind to be tested and compared to see if evidence left behind could come from an individual based on the DNA profile that's obtained.
Can you describe for the jury the process you go through when conducting a DNA analysis?
It's a 4-step process. The first step is to remove the DNA from whatever it's on. So if it's on a swab or a piece of clothing, the extraction process removes the DNA from not only what it's on, but also from the cellular material that it's contained within. The second step is to determine how much DNA is in that sample. The third step is, it's called the amplification, or the area where we're targeting 21 specific locations on the DNA and making copies of those so that they can be visualized and compared. And then the final step is that visualization or the determination of the DNA profile, which represents as peaks on a graph. And it's the location of those peaks on the graph compared from evidence to known samples that allow me to determine if it's a same source or not.
Does that 4-step process you just described do anything to alter or change or modify the actual DNA?
No, it does not.
And what are controls?
Controls are items within our testing process that are used to make sure that everything is working properly. So for the extraction step, there's a blank sample or a negative control. And that simply is a sample that does not have any DNA in it. And that goes through the entire process to make sure that none of the chemicals that I'm using or there's no cross-contamination between any samples getting DNA into that particular sample. So it's just showing that everything is coming back clean. And then in that amplification step or that copying stage, I do a positive control and a negative control. So we have a secondary negative control again, showing that everything is clean. The positive control is a known DNA sample. So that gets processed to verify that the results that I'm obtaining at the end are correct so that I know that the instrument's working properly and everything worked as expected in the run.
Is it also normal in your course of work as a DNA analyst to perform statistical analysis to give meaning to your DNA results?
Yes.
And are you're trained in how to do that?
Yes.
Have you provided testimony in court regarding that statistical analysis?
Yes, I have.
This time, Your Honor, the state would request permission to allow this witness to provide opinion testimony in the area of DNA analysis.
No objection.
Any voir dire?
No voir dire.
I'll allow her to testify in the form of an opinion without objection.
When you were working at Florida Department of Law Enforcement, did you and your laboratory receive some evidence in the case of State of Florida versus Herbert Swilley?
Yes.
Were you provided a DNA standard from Herbert Swilley?
Yes.
And what is a DNA standard?
It's a sample collected directly from an individual, so it's a known DNA sample collected from a person. Typically, it's a scraping from the inside of their cheek.
Showing us introduced in evidence of State 17. You recognize that item?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
The bright yellow barcode is the FDLE case number, item number, and then in my handwriting, again, the FDLE case number, the item number, my initials, and the date that I opened this item.
Did you analyze that known DNA standard from Herbert Swilley for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
Did you use the same process you just described to the jury?
Yes.
And what were your results?
I developed a complete profile. So
What's a complete profile?
sorry. So like I said, we're looking at 21 different locations on the DNA. So in this case, I obtained results at all 21 locations. So that's all of the information available for my testing that I could obtain from that item.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit Triple B. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
Again, the bright yellow FDLE barcode with the case number, item number, and then in my handwriting, the FDLE case number, item number, the individual items contained within this package, and then my initials and the date that I opened the item.
What is that item?
It's a sexual assault kit.
Okay. And during the course of, is that usually collected during the time of the autopsy in a case like this?
Yes.
Okay. And during that collection of the sexual assault kit, were samples taken from the subject's mouth?
Yes.
And did you use those samples as a known standard for the victim, Timothy Smith?
Yes, I did.
Did you analyze those known samples from the cheek swabbing of Timothy Smith as a known standard for him?
Yes.
Did you analyze it for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
And what did you find? What were your results?
That was again, it was a single source profile, a complete DNA profile. So I have
We want to thank our guest who is joining us this hour, Lindsay Richards. And coming up next, we're going to continue to follow this case, and it definitely is an interesting one to say the least. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, along with Kelly Craft, who's here filling in for Ted Rollins. Thank you so much for being with us as we begin this hour. In a trial where a man is accused of killing his husband.
57-year-old Herbert Swilley is accused of drugging and then strangling his husband, Tim Smith. This was in their home back in 2023.
Now, prosecutors say that Swilley then moved his husband's body to an apartment that the couple used for sexual encounters with other people that they met online, and that he then staged a fake crime scene.
Let's get you back to that courtroom now. The jury is hearing from a forensic DNA analyst, Lisa Johnson.
A complete profile from both of those individuals.
Showing what's been introduced into evidence of States 43, did you also receive a known DNA sample from someone named James True?
Yes.
Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
The same way you previously described?
Yes.
All right. Did you analyze that item for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
And what did you find?
A complete DNA profile.
Okay. So at this point, now that you have a complete DNA profile from Herbert Swilley, Tim Smith, and James True, are you able to take those known DNA profiles and compare them to other evidence collected from a crime scene to see if it's consistent?
Yes.
Were you in fact provided various pieces of evidence, mostly in the form of swabs, collected by the crime scene investigators in this case?
Yes.
Is it normal for you to receive a swab collected by a crime scene investigator from an item rather than the actual item itself?
Yes, specifically with Marion County, their crime scene does a lot of their sample collections, and they swab items and then just submit the swabs to us.
Okay. Does that affect your analysis in any way?
No.
You mentioned in front of you the sexual assault kit, State's Exhibit Triple B. What items are contained in that you've looked at?
There were anal swabs, scrotal swabs, penile swabs, obviously the oral swab that I used for comparison, and pubic hair combings. There was also pulled pubic hair. Yes, and those were the 6 items within
And are
that.
those the normal things you see in a sexual assault kit?
Typically for a male kit, yes.
Okay. Were each of those items that you mentioned individually packaged inside of that larger item?
Yes.
Did you analyze the other items in that sexual assault kit for the presence of DNA? Some of them.
Some of them, yes.
And we'll get into the individual ones. Did you use the same procedure you just described?
Yes.
What specific items did you analyze in that sexual assault kit for the presence of DNA?
The anal swabs, scrotal swabs, and penile swabs.
When you analyze those types of things taken from a sexual assault kit, do you assume that the victim's DNA is going to be on those things?
Yes, since they're collected directly from that person's body, I would expect during the process of collection, their DNA would be present as well.
So when you were analyzing those types of items for the presence of DNA, are you really looking for foreign DNA or DNA that does not belong or match the victims?
That's correct.
Referring to the anal swabs, when you analyzed that item for the presence of DNA, what did you find?
I developed a DNA profile that was consistent with a mixture, which just means there was DNA from more than one person within that particular sample. I would expect Timothy Smith's DNA to be present, and it was. And then the results that were foreign to him were too limited to do any type of comparison.
And what does that mean?
Like I said, we look at 21 different locations. In order to do any type of comparison or interpretation, we need at least 7 types to make that type of comparison. So in this case, there were fewer than 7 types present within that mixture that would have come from somebody other than Timothy Smith.
So basically the amount of DNA was just so minimal you couldn't do anything with it.
That's correct.
So I'm assuming in real life, not like crime CSI on TV, you can't get DNA from everything you look at.
That's correct.
Referring to I believe the scrotal swabs, did you analyze those for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
What did you find?
There were no results foreign to Timothy Smith on those swabs.
And what about the penile swab?
It's the same thing.
You mentioned in that kit there were pubic hair combings collected from the victim. Did you analyze those combings in any way?
I opened the package and there were no visible hairs present.
Since there were no hairs present, could you do anything with it as far as the DNA analysis is concerned?
No.
Showing you State's Exhibit 12, did you receive some swabs taken from the fingernails of the victim in this case?
Yes.
Did you analyze those swabs for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
What were your results?
The left and the right were, I examined them separately. There were, again, mixtures of multiple individuals, but the foreign donor or the person not Timothy Smith was too limited to do any type of comparisons.
Again, the amount of DNA was just too minimal for you to analyze.
That's correct.
I understand it. Showing you State's Exhibit 11, where you also provided fingernail clippings taken from the victim.
Yes.
Did you analyze those clippings for the presence of DNA?
Yes, I did.
What'd you find?
On the fingernail clippings, there was no DNA foreign to the victim.
Showing you State's Exhibit 13, did you analyze some DNA or some swabs collected from various portions of the victim's body for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
And what were your results?
For the, sorry, real quick. There was a swab from the lower right leg. There was not enough results at all to do any type of comparison, so not even Timothy Smith's DNA. On the swab from the left leg and the left arm, it was the same. There was limited amount of DNA, so I could make no comparisons whatsoever.
Showing you State's Exhibit, first of all, I'm going to show you photograph 34 from State's Exhibit 5, where you also provided swabs taken from the black shirt the victim was wearing.
Yes.
Did you analyze those swabs for the presence of DNA?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results?
There were, again, there was a mixture obtained. The foreign contributor was too limited to make any type of comparison.
Showing you State's Exhibit 36, where you provided a swab collected from the victim's left shoe.
Yes.
Did you analyze that as well for the presence of DNA?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results?
Give me just 1 second. I gotta refer to my notes. Again, there was a mixture, but the foreign results were too limited to make any comparisons.
What do cleaning agents like bleach do to DNA?
Cleaning agents will wash it away, and it can also degrade DNA to make it so that it's not detectable.
And in your DNA analysis, would you be able to determine that a DNA sample provided had bleach in it?
No,
Okay, why not?
that's not something that we
Okay.
can test for.
Understood. Showing you photograph 3 from States 18, did you receive a DNA swab collected from a coconut juice can in the garbage can at the scene?
Yes.
Showing you State 20, did you analyze that item for the presence of DNA?
Yes, I did.
And what were your results?
There was a mixture consistent with 2 individuals, at least one of which was male. Timothy Smith, Herbert Swilley, and James True were all excluded as contributors to that profile.
Okay, meaning Timothy Smith, Herbert Swilley, and James True did not contribute to the DNA found on that swab.
That's correct.
Okay. And you said at least one of the contributors was male. How do you know that?
In addition to the 21 locations that I look at in terms of DNA comparison, there's 3 locations that determine gender. And in this case, there was at least one marker consistent with there being a male individual.
showing you photograph 29 from States 5, as well as item number 35, introduced into evidence. Did you receive a DNA swab collected from a bottle of gun oil lubricant?
Yes.
What did you determine when you analyzed that for the presence of DNA?
There was a limited amount of DNA on that item.
Now,
All right, listening to the DNA analyst on the stand, we are going to squeeze in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. You're watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
Tonight, on Closing Arguments, another dramatic day of testimony in the pregnant mistress murder trial. We'll break down the biggest moments in this death penalty case.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Saturday nights on ION
is our night.
Let's go! Double headers every Saturday at 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern. The new Saturday Night Out is on ION all season long.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Thank you for being with us as we follow this trial out of Ocala, Florida. It's one that we're calling the Dosed and Choked murder trial, and the defendant is a contractor named Herbert Swilley.
Prosecutors say that Swilley drugged and then strangled his husband of nearly a decade in order to receive a large life insurance payout.
But the defense on the other side of this says Swilley and Tim Smith, that they had an open marriage, that there were other people that they were involved with, and that investigators overlooked those possible suspects. And we're hearing about the DNA profiles of other men that was found inside of this separate apartment that the couple used for sexual encounters.
Let's get you back into the courtroom now. We are hearing from a forensic DNA analyst who is testifying to the DNA that was found at the crime scene.
So I did a statistical calculation regarding that.
Okay, let's talk about that first before we move on.
Okay.
So Timothy Smith was included as a possible contributor.
Yes.
Describe generally how you do this statistical analysis to give meaning or weight to that finding.
I use a software program that essentially compares the likelihood of seeing that DNA profile or that mixture of DNA if it came from, in this case, Timothy Smith and two people that we don't know, versus the likelihood of seeing that profile if it came from three unknown people. So I made that calculation, and that profile, that mixed DNA profile, is greater than 700 billion times more likely to be seen if the sample contained DNA from Timothy Smith and two unknown people versus if it came from three unknown people.
Okay, so if I can clarify, it was based on that mixture, it was 700 billion times more likely that Timothy Smith and two other people contributed to the mixture than if three people, not including Tim Smith, contributed.
It's greater than 700 billion times more likely to see that profile if those were the conditions.
And would you agree that that is really strong support that Tim Smith was a contributor to this mixture?
Yes.
Okay. Did you also, now that leaves two other people involved in that mixture, did you compare the other two DNA profiles found in that mixture to the known samples provided from Herbert Swilley and James True?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
In those cases, there was insufficient statistical support for inclusion or exclusion for both of those individuals.
What does that mean?
Basically, we have, or FDLE has a cutoff value for kind of the gray area where there's not a whole lot of confidence regarding a person's contribution or not. And those values fell within that range. So in this case, those two individuals, there was not enough support to say, yes, they're there, and there was also not enough evidence to say they weren't there. So it's kind of in that gray area.
Okay. And based on that, there's nothing more you can analyze to flush that out anymore, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that statistical analysis also provide percentages of the contributors to this three-person mixture?
Yes.
How does that work?
Like I said, I use a software program to do this calculation. And basically what the software does is it goes through and determines DNA profiles for each of the three people. And then it gives different amounts for each person. And it looks at what the data would look like if that was true, and it keeps changing and making guesses and kind of narrowing it down until it gets to the point where if the profile is from person 1, 2, and 3 in these amounts, the data would match, basically like the expected or the ideal way that the data would look. So then it uses that type of calculation, and it determines the percentage of how much each person contributed to the profile.
So in this specific situation, since you were able to, with pretty good certainty, identify Tim Smith as a contributor to this mixture, but you weren't able to identify the other 2 contributors, would that stand to reason that the percentage of DNA in the mixture would be more Tim Smith than the other people's?
Yes,
Okay.
there was considerably more DNA from Tim Smith than the other 2 individuals.
What percentage of this mixture was associated with the known profile, the DNA from Tim Smith?
I'd have to look at my notes. I'm sorry, I got lost. Which item were we looking at?
That's fine. We are on agency item number 64 for you. State's Exhibit 24, the adult blood swab.
Right. Sorry. Item 12. Approximately 93% of the profile would be from Timothy Smith.
So of that mixture of 3 people, 93% of it matches or is consistent with the profile of Tim Smith.
Yes.
What were the percentage as far as the other 2 contributors that you couldn't even determine?
6% and 1%.
Okay. Did you also receive a swab taken from the caps of several lubrication bottles found at the apartment scene?
Yes.
And did you analyze that swab for the presence of DNA?
Yes.
What did you find?
On that item, again, a mixture consistent with 3 donors, at least 1 male.
And did you compare that mixture to the known profile of Herbert Swilley first?
Yes, I did.
And what did you find?
Herbert Swilley is included as a possible contributor to that DNA profile. The statistic is that profile is approximately 34,000 times more likely to occur if the DNA came from Herbert Swilley and 2 unknown individuals versus 3 unknown individuals.
Did you also compare the profiles in that 3-person mixture to the known profiles of Tim Smith and James True?
Yes.
And what were your results?
Again, those other 2 individuals were inconclusive. So they were in that gray zone.
Showing you photograph 10 from states 18. Did you receive a swab?
All right, why don't we go ahead and bring in our guest this hour. In court, they're about to show a picture that we don't want to show on camera, so it gives us an opportunity to bring in our guest for this hour. That is joining us in the studio, trial attorney Miguel Custodio. Miguel, thanks so much for coming to Court TV and talking with us about this case in studio. We've been listening to DNA evidence that's being brought forth on the stand, but I want to ask you about this. So what we're taking away from this case from one of the people that have been on the ground talking about the defendant and his demeanor throughout this trial, in particular, some of the actions of him recently while in court, and his hands are very fidgety. When you are working with someone, when you are talking with someone or inside the courtroom, talk about the defendant's demeanor, and how important that is for them to act maybe a certain way.
It's critical that you prepare your client to make sure that anything he's doing doesn't give certain signals to the juror one way or another. couple weeks ago, I was on a jury, and I was a foreperson. And one of the things that a lot of the jurors focused in the deliberation room was how the defendant was smiling and laughing during certain parts of the victim's testimony. And that was something that really enraged them. And I thought, as a defense attorney, he should have really trained his client to act a certain way, to not be smiling, especially when it's the victim's testimony, not anybody else's testimony. It's the victim's testimony about how she got hurt, how he hit her allegedly, and he started laughing, and people really took it really bad. And so I think it's very important when you're sitting in that jury box, there's only a few things you're focusing on. You're focusing on the witness testifying and the prosecution and the defense counsel, and who else? The defendant, and obviously the clock. That's what they're all looking at. But when they were looking at the defendant, they just could not get over the fact that he was just a horrible person because he was laughing. And so it's critical that all the trial attorneys prepare their clients accordingly, because the focus is on that person. It's really on that person. And trust me, in this case, they are taking note of what's going on.
And I can't get over the fact that you were an attorney being a juror. People don't know how rare that is. Most other attorneys don't want attorneys to be on their jury. Let's talk about the DNA, though, in this case. It's a little bit complicated. Who knows which of these jurors are really following all of these numbers, but we're hearing the name James True. We are going to be hearing the name Lloyd Kelly, who we just heard on the stand via Zoom. Is DNA that critical when you know the state, it's not very helpful to them, because even if this defendant's DNA is there, this is his house, this is his husband, but there are foreign DNA matches. That's big.
It's big, and it's tricky with this DNA evidence, right? Because you run the risk, if you're the state, of confusing the jurors. Because if you have somebody who's dry, like this expert, they're gonna get bored right away. And they're gonna start hearing, oh, there's foreign, it could have been somebody else. They start thinking that, and then the defense, that's where they have to come in and start poking holes at the prosecution's argument, right? Because what's their classic argument gonna be? That the state was hastily investigating this. They only focused on one person. There were other leads that they failed to follow up on. And so this could actually play into the defense's arguments. And so the state has to be very careful with this evidence, just to make sure that you're having the witness testify quick and you're out, quick and out. Because if you start really going into the details, you're gonna lose the jurors' attention, and that's not good.
Well, speaking of the details, what they were about to show in court was a sex toy that they swabbed for DNA. Let's get to our break, and when we come back, we're going to hear more of this testimony in the dosed and choked murder trial in Ocala, Florida.
Great.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, along with Kelly Craft, who's filling in for Ted Rollins. We are watching that case against Herbert Swilley in Florida. But first, we do want to give you an update about another Florida case that we have been following, the pregnant mistress murder trial.
Defendant Jose Soto Escalara is accused of killing 23-year-old Tanya Wise after she allegedly refused to get an abortion.
Now, before court ended for the day today, the jury heard from a neighbor who testified to surveillance video of the defendant's truck on the night of the murder.
Did the neighbor to your left drive a truck?
Y el vecino de su izquierda manejaba una camioneta, un truck.
Sí.
Yes.
We are stopped on State's Exhibit 166 at the 9-second mark. For the record, the screen reads 8/23/2018. The truck that is where it's paused in this video in your surveillance, do you recognize that truck?
La camioneta que usted ve que está parada en este video de su vigilancia, ¿usted lo reconoce? Objection, Judge, may we approach?
Yes.
Now, when court resumes tomorrow, they are going to be presenting more translation evidence, recordings. Let's bring in trial attorney Miguel Custodio, who's with us to talk about that part of this case, because, Miguel, that was a huge part, that the defense is arguing or objecting to these recordings of the defendant where he is allegedly saying, here's how I'm going to get away with it. My life is over if she is revealed as my girlfriend when I have a wife, I have 4 kids. But all of these translations, all the recordings are in Spanish, and these jurors don't have transcripts, but someone has translated it. Do you have any problem with how they're doing it in this case?
I do, and I think that's why the defense has done a really good job of making sure that their objections are very clear, laying the groundwork for a possible appellate appeal in this case, if it goes against a defendant. There's always that issue of how accurate the testimony is going to be, or when it's in a different language. And so especially here, when you have a jury that's made up of some people that are Latinos, and they I'm assuming they know Spanish, and it's going to, when they hear it, they're going to interpret it a certain way, a different way than what the other people, non-Spanish people are thinking of how it's coming across. So it's something that you have to be very careful. But the state is doing a really good job, because the transcripts, they're damning. I mean, they are like really bad. And so I think they know that there's a potential for an appeal down the road, but I think they understand how valuable it is, and so that's why they're going forward with it.
Yeah, it's a death penalty case.
I was asking you about the defendant in the Swilley case that we were watching. Now, this defendant, when we've watched him throughout the trial, he's taken a lot of notes. He seems like he's actively participating. What do you think of that approach from a defendant?
I think that's what you want.
Okay.
Because if he's just staring into space, I think that can lead different jurors to have different interpretations. Whereas if he's just writing, I think there's not too much you can take away from that. But I did see in an earlier segment of him kind of smirking.
Ooh.
And obviously that's not good. And as I said, the jurors are locked on this person, especially when there's a transcript. They're just thinking, how could you have said this? Yeah. And if he's smiling or he's smirking, that does not bode well for him at all.
We will continue to keep everyone updated on that trial. Again, the jury has gone home for the day, so no more testimony. But we are turning our attention to the other live trial we have for you in Ocala, Florida. This is a murder trial that's underway for defendant Herbert Swilley.
And he's charged with first-degree murder in the death of his husband, Timothy, who investigators say was drugged, beaten, and strangled before his body was moved to stage a fake crime scene.
Let's get you back into the courtroom now. We're listening to testimony from a DNA analyst who is explaining the different kinds of matches and profiles, some of men who are not on trial here or the victim, that she located in this case.
For his statistical calculation, it's greater than 700 billion times more likely to see that profile if it came from him and 2 individuals versus 3 individuals.
So that's a much higher likelihood that the DNA in that mixture came from Herbert Swilley, one of the people in the mixture.
Yes, it's very strong support that he is a contributor to that profile.
Did you, now there's 3, you said it's a mixture of 3 people.
Yes.
Did you compare the mixture and the DNA profiles containing that mixture to the known profile of James True also?
Yes.
What'd you find?
James True is also included as a possible contributor to that mixture. The profile is approximately 28 million times more likely to occur if he is a donor with 2 other individuals versus 3 unknown individuals.
Were you able to determine the percentage of contribution that each of those 3 individuals made to the DNA mixture?
Yes.
What were your results?
Let me check my notes. So the mixture proportions are 45%, 34%, and 21%.
And how did those mixtures break down based on the 3 profiles that you found?
Herbert Swilley would be the 45% donor, James True the 34% donor, and Timothy Smith the 3%, or the 21% donor, the third person. And all of the DNA within that would be accounted for from those 3 individuals.
So if those 3 people were the contributors to that 3-person mixture, there's no other foreign DNA that's unaccounted for?
That's correct.
I understand it. Does that also give pretty strong likelihood that those 3 are the people that contribute to this mixture?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't calculate that statistic, 'cause the number gets ridiculously large.
Okay.
To the point where I don't even understand what the number means. But yes, in this case, everything is accounted for if those 3 people are the source of the DNA.
Understood. And finally, you mentioned there was a second swab collected from that same sexual device, showing you states item 27. Did you analyze that swab for presence of DNA as well?
Yes.
And what were your results?
There was a limited amount of DNA, so there was not enough, there wasn't even enough DNA to do analysis.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
You miss living in the state of Florida?
Not at all.
I won't take that personally.
It was 65 degrees when I left yesterday morning.
Oh, that does sound nice. So you were with FDLE for how many years?
12.
Okay. And collectively between FDLE and any other analyst experience, you have about 20 years in total experience in this field?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And during your time with FDLE, you were tasked with doing an analysis of multiple swabs of suspected DNA for this case and investigation, correct?
Yes.
I want to just confirm my understanding of a few of the tests that you did regarding this investigation that were of value. You had mentioned regarding the sex assault kit or the rape kit for the victim in this case, that you had done a DNA analysis of the anal swabs, correct?
Yes.
And you mentioned that there did appear to you to be the presence of foreign DNA, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Meaning not belonging to the victim?
Yes.
Okay. But you were unable to identify to whom that DNA may likely belong?
Yes, there was insufficient DNA for that foreign donor to make any type of interpretations.
Okay. And regarding the fingernail clippings and or the swabs of those clippings from the victim in this case, was there any foreign DNA, meaning DNA other than that of the victim, that you were able to identify through your analysis of those items?
No, there was some foreign DNA, but I was unable to make any type of interpretation.
Okay. And was that also the case regarding the swabs that you tested that were swabs from the black tank top that the victim was wearing?
Yes.
DNA is always really important in a case. Jurors lean in a little more when they're hearing about DNA. Let's get you to a break, and when we come back, we're going to pick it up right where we're leaving off with this analyst on the stand in the case of Florida versus Herbert Swilley.
Tonight, on closing arguments, another dramatic day of testimony in the pregnant mistress murder trial. We'll break down the biggest moments in this death penalty case.
Closing arguments with Vinnie Politan tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series.
I've never seen anything like this.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. Season premieres September 27th.
Only on Court TV. Free.
Welcome back. Let's get you back inside of the dosed and choked murder trial that centers on an apartment that was used for sexual encounters. The defendant here is Herbert Swilley.
And he was arrested back in 2023 for the murder of 59-year-old Timothy Floyd Smith. This was his husband. The couple had been married nearly 8 years. Smith was found dead in an Ocala apartment after he failed to show up for work.
Now, we're hearing from a DNA analyst who's on the stand right now. She is just starting her cross-examination, and she did say during her direct that she found different DNA profiles for 3 people, so one being the victim, one being the defendant, and one being a third man. But the defense is about to spend a lot of time on a 4th man. Let's go in.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And regarding the swabs that you tested, which were from the coconut water can in this investigation, you mentioned, and correct me if I heard you wrong, that there was DNA from at least 2 unknown male contributors?
There's 2 donors, at least one of which was male.
I see. Okay. And James True, my client Herbert Swilley, and the victim Tim Smith were all excluded as contributors to that DNA mixture, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then we moved on, and this case is a bit unique. There was mention of swabs from a butt plug that you tested for the presence of DNA. Do you recall discussing that on direct examination?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that regarding that analysis, Tim Smith was included as a contributor to that mixture, correct?
Yes.
And that was a mixed DNA profile for 3 different individuals.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And one of them was Tim Smith.
Yes.
One of them was James True.
No.
Okay. And what about the defendant?
For James True and Herbert Swilley, it was in that inconclusive zone. So
I see. So
I could neither include or exclude them.
You couldn't rule them in, you couldn't rule them out.
Correct.
All right. Moving on to another adult toy, the swabs that you analyzed from the Satisfier. You had mentioned that was a mixed DNA profile, correct me if I heard you wrong, that included that of the alleged victim, Tim Smith.
Yes.
And the defendant, Herbert Swilley.
Yes.
And James True.
That's correct.
Okay. And when you were asked what portions of the mixture were each of those gentlemen's, you had mentioned regarding James True, his DNA was 21% of the total mixture. Did I get that right?
I believe it was Timothy Smith that was the 21%.
Oh, I'm sorry. So James True was the 34%.
That's correct.
Understood. And was there any of your analysis of items that you tested for the presence of DNA that indicated a possible link to an individual named Lloyd Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. And what item or items was it that you tested that correlated to Lloyd Kelly?
That was the swab of the bottle caps of the lubricant bottles.
Okay. And that particular mixed DNA profile, what was the statistical probability that was Lloyd Kelly's DNA?
I did not make that calculation. I never obtained a sample from Lloyd Kelly to do that calculation.
Okay. So how were you able to identify identify the name Lloyd Kelly?
There was that particular sample was entered into the CODIS database, which CODIS stands for the Combined DNA Index System. The profile was entered in there, searched against the database, and returned a hit to somebody named Lloyd Kelly.
Okay. So meaning Lloyd Kelly's DNA was already within the database.
Correct.
So that's how you were able to make the link.
Yes.
Okay.